Leander made the first move, feinting a strike to the left. Seraphim's eyes flicked toward the motion, her body instinctively tensing, preparing for the expected attack. But in a swift motion, Leander diverted to the right, aiming to sweep her legs out from under her. The move was quick and calculated. Before she could react fully, his leg was already aiming for hers. Seraphim's heart raced, but she was ready. With a fluid motion, she parried, bringing her blade down in a controlled strike toward his right midsection, all the while propelling herself into the air to leap over his sweeping leg. Her feet barely touched the ground before she was airborne, her muscles coiling with the momentum. Leander, anticipating her move, effortlessly blocked her strike with a sharp twist of his own blade, redirecting the blow with ease. Her feet landed lightly on the training grounds, her posture still fluid from the jump, her focus shifting entirely to the sparring session. As her feet settled, the tension of everything she had been thinking about, the mark on her wrist, the mysterious vision, her engagement, began to melt away. In this moment, there was no mystery, no questions. There was only movement, only the sharp clarity of combat, and the rhythm of her body in sync with the environment. Leander grinned at her as he reset his stance, his movements effortless, like water flying. Nice reflexes, he said, his voice casual but filled with a hint of admiration. You've been practicing. Seraphim didn't answer immediately. She was too focused on the next strike, her mind clearing as the fight sharpened. She could feel her senses heightening. Every movement, every shift of weight was more pronounced. Her instincts were taking over, pushing away the lingering confusion and the weight of the unknown. Without warning, Leander lunged forward, his strike coming at an angle she hadn't anticipated. It was fast, and she barely had a moment to react. But Seraphim's body seemed to respawn before her mind had a chance to catch up. She spun to the side, narrowly avoiding the strike, and in the same motion her own weapon came up to parry his follow-up. Their blades clashed in a resounding echo, the impact vibrating through her arms, but she held her ground. Impressive, Leander said, clearly enjoying the challenge. You're getting better. Fast. Seraphim could feel the warmth of the mark on her wrist again, pulsing slightly with every movement she made. It was as though the mark was in sync with her every action, every thought. The sensation both unsettled and invigorated her. What was this power? It was as if she was tapping into something deeper with each motion, something that went beyond mere training. She pressed forward now, using her agility to her advantage. Leander's quick reflexes were a challenge, but she could sense the openings in his stance. A shift in his weight, a slight misstep, and she was already there, bringing her blade down in a diagonal strike aimed for his shoulder. Leander blocked it easily, but just as he did, Seraphim pivoted, using the momentum to spin around and aim for his lower legs. He jumped back just in time, narrowly avoiding the strike. You're quick, he remarked, his eyes bright with something like amusement. But you're not just relying on speed today. There's something else. Seraphim's breath came a little faster now. Her muscles were warm, alive with energy, and her mind felt clear, as if everything that had been weighing on her was now pushed aside. She could feel her connection to her body, to the rhythm of the fight, but still something tugged at her. The feeling that this sparring was just a distraction. Her mind kept drifting back to the mark on her wrist, to the vision she had seen. But for now, all she could focus on was the fight in front of her. Leander continued to press his advantage, pushing her back with a series of fast, controlled strikes. But Seraphim's focus sharpened. She parried one blow, dodged another, and then with a quick motion she stepped into the attack, closing the distance between them in a flash. Leander's eyes widened, slightly caught off guard by her sudden change in rhythm. But before he could react, Seraphim's blade was already at his throat. The sparring stopped instantly. Leander froze, his expression one of mild surprise, but there was no tension in his posture, no frustration. Instead, there was a quiet recognition in his gaze. "Well played," he said after a beat, lowering his weapon and stepping back. "I didn't think you'd close the gap like that. You're more than just a skilled fighter. There's something different today." Seraphim lowered her own blade, her breath still coming a little fast, her heart thumping in her chest. The mark on her wrist throbbed softly, almost as if in response to her victory. "I don't know what happened," she admitted, her voice steadying. "It just felt right, like I was in the zone." Leander nodded, wiping a hand across his brow. "That's the key," he said, his voice thoughtful. "You tapped into something deeper, something more than technique. The best fighters do that. It's not just about thinking, it's about feeling. You were in the moment." Seraphim couldn't help but look at her wrist, where the mark of stars and cat's-eye stones shimmered faintly. The pulsing sensation had faded, but it lingered in the back of her mind. She wondered if the mark had something to do with the way she had fought today, the way her instincts had kicked in so strongly. "Maybe," she said quietly, her gaze moving from her wrist to Leander's face. "Maybe there's more to this mark than I thought." Leander studied her for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly as if he could sense the deeper layers of her thoughts. "You think the mark is influencing your fight?" Seraphim shrugged, her brow furrowing. "I'm not sure, but it's like something awakened in me during the fight. It felt different." Leander nodded, his expression thoughtful. "The mark might be doing something for you, something beyond what we can understand right now. But whatever it is, it's making you stronger. Keep exploring it. But be careful. Sometimes the things we don't understand can be dangerous. Try seeking guidance from the current oracle." Seraphim met his gaze, the weight of his words sinking in. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of clarity. She was still unsure of what the true oracle meant, true occult meant, or why it had chosen her. But in that moment, with the feeling of her body alive from the sparring session, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to let it control her. She was going to learn from it, and she was going to find the truth, no matter what it took. The oracle's chamber was at the heart of the sanctuary, nestled within a towering grove of ancient trees whose branches intertwined to form a natural cathedral. The air here was heavy with the scent of earth and moss, a reminder of the deep connection the oracle held to the mother tree and the mysteries of the garden. Seraphim paused at the arched entrance, her heart fluttering in her chest. She had never met the current oracle, and while she had heard tales of the woman's profound wisdom, there was no way to predict what answers or riddles she might receive. The chamber itself was dimly lit by orbs of soft, ethereal light that floated lazily in the air. In the center sat the oracle, a serene figure cloaked in flowing robes of pale green and gold. Her face was shadowed by a hood, but Seraphim could see her eyes glowing faintly beneath it, piercing, yet kind. The woman's presence seemed to fill the room, radiating both an undeniable power and an unshakable calm. As Seraphim stepped forward, her boots made no sound on the moss-covered floor. Her mark tingled faintly beneath the fabric of her sleeve, a constant reminder of her newfound role as true oracle and the heavy responsibility it carried. She clasped her hands together to steady them and dropped into a low bow. "Oracle," she said, her voice steady despite the storm within her. "Thank you for granting me this audience." The oracle tilted her head, a faint smile gracing her lips. "Seraphim of the House of Hightower," she said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. "You are a seeker, are you not? You have come with questions heavy on your heart." Seraphim straightened, meeting the oracle's gaze. The woman's eyes shimmered like the surface of a still pond, holding depths Seraphim could scarcely imagine. "I have," she admitted. "My path, I don't understand it. The mark I was given, the choices being thrust upon me, they feel like pieces of a puzzle I can't put together. I thought you might help me see what I cannot." The oracle gestured to a seat carved from the root of a tree. "Sit, child. The path of the oracle is not one of ease, but it is one of truth. You seek answers, and I will offer you guidance. But understand this: the answers you seek may not bring you comfort. They may instead reveal the burdens you are yet to carry." Seraphim hesitated, but obeyed, lowering herself into the seat. The wood was warm against her skin, as though the tree itself welcomed her. "I will accept whatever truths you share," she said, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her uncertainty. The oracle leaned forward, resting her hands on a gnarled staff that seemed to pulse with life. "Your path is a long one, Seraphim. It is a journey of discovering the secrets hidden around you. Secrets that have been buried by time, by fear, and by those who would prefer the truth remain in shadow. You must be vigilant, for not all secrets wish to be uncovered." Seraphim's pulse quickened. "Secrets? What kind of secrets?" "Some will reveal the nature of your world," the oracle replied. "Others will lay bare the truths of your heart, and some will force you to question the very foundations upon which your life has been built. The choices you make will determine whether you walk a path of light or one of darkness. But be warned. The key to navigating this path is balance." "Balance?" Seraphim echoed, her mind racing. "Between what?" The oracle smiled faintly. "Between duty and desire. Between fear and courage. Between the truths you uncover and the lies you tell yourself to endure them. You cannot hope to carry the weight of the world if you let it tip too far in one direction. Balance is what keeps the scales from breaking." Seraphim looked down at her hands, thoughts swirling. I feel like I'm being pulled in 100 directions, she admitted. I don't even know where to begin. My betrothal, my mark, the challenge. How can I make the right choices when I don't even know what's right? The oracle's eyes softened. Your first choice is closer than you think, child. It will come to you soon, an unexpected decision, one that will present you with two paths you did not know were an option. The choice will set the tone for your journey ahead. Seraphim's heart sank. An unexpected decision. Two paths she didn't know existed? It felt as though the oracle's words only added more weight to her confusion. Can you tell me what this choice will be? I cannot, the oracle said gently. But I can tell you this. The choice will not be made with your mind alone. It will require you to trust your heart, your instincts. You must listen to what the world is telling you, even if that message is unclear at first. Seraphim closed her eyes, trying to steady her thoughts. The room seemed to grow quieter, the hum of energy around her fading into the background. When she opened her eyes, the oracle was watching her intently. Remember this, Seraphim, the oracle said. The light and the dark are not enemies. They are partners in the dance of existence, each giving meaning to the other. Do not fear the darkness, but do not let it consume you. Walk the line between them, and you will find the strength to face whatever lies ahead. The words resonated deep within her, setting like stones in the restless sea of her mind. She didn't fully understand them. How could she? But there was a certainty in the oracle's voice that gave her hope, a flicker of light in the chaos of her thoughts. Thank you, Seraphim said quietly, rising to her feet. I don't know if I can live up to the expectations placed on me, but I'll try. The oracle smiled, a warm and knowing expression. You will not be alone, Seraphim. Though your journey is your own, there will be those who walk beside you, who challenge you, who push you to grow. Trust in them, even when you doubt yourself. Seraphim bowed deeply, her heart both heavy and strangely lighter than it had been when she entered. As she turned to leave, the oracle's voice stopped her. One more thing, child, the oracle said. Do not be afraid to ask questions of the world around you. The truth often hides in the spaces where no one thinks to look. Seraphim nodded, a spark of determination igniting within her. She didn't have all the answers, but perhaps that was the point. Her path would be one of discovery, of uncovering the truths that had long been hidden. And for the first time, she felt ready to take the first step. The Spring Wisp Festival arrived in a burst of color and music, filling the Elysium Garden with life and exuberance. The sky overhead was a soft golden hue, the fading sunlight casting a magical glow over the festival grounds. The streets were lined with stalls adorned with garlands of blooming flowers in every color imaginable. Sun-drenched marigolds, delicate pink cherry blossoms, and fragrant violets. Musicians played lively tunes, their melodies mingling with the hum of cheerful conversation and laughter. Children darted through the crowds, chasing each other with ribbons trailing behind them, while vendors called out their wares, sugared fruits, sparkling drinks, and handcrafted trinkets that gleamed like stars. This was the Spring Wisp Festival, a time of renewal and promise, marking the transition from the softness of spring to the warmth of early summer. For most, it was a celebration of life's joy and beauty. For the young adults of the garden, however, it was a momentous a time to be chosen. Those aged 20 and older gathered in their finest attire, adorned in elaborate masquerade masks that concealed their identities until the evening's climactic revelation. The heart of the festival was the grand ceremony of betrothal. It was a tradition steeped in mystery and anticipation, the pinnacle of a carefully arranged system that wove families and destinies together. Tonight, those selected would discover their partners, their masks removed in a moment of truth before the entire community. The atmosphere thrummed with a mix of excitement, curiosity, and quiet nerves. The evening began with an open waltz in the great garden pavilion, a space transformed for the festival. Glimmering lanterns hung from the towering trees, their soft light reflecting off crystal chandeliers suspended high above the polished wooden dance floor. Fresh petals were scattered across the ground, their subtle fragrance mingling with the crisp evening air. A string ensemble played from a dais at the pavilion's edge, their music weaving an enchanting spell over the gathering. Seraphim, dressed in an elegant gown of soft lavender that shimmered in the light, moved gracefully through the crowd. Her gown was tailored to perfection, the bodice delicately embroidered with silver thread that caught the flickering lantern glow. She wore a mask of intricate filigree, silver and amethyst stones sparkling along its edges, framing her like a constellation. Her hair was styled in a cascade of soft curls, pinned with tiny violets that matched the hue of her gown. Her first partner, a tall figure in a gold-trimmed navy ensemble, extended a hand with a courteous bow. Seraphim accepted, and they began to dance. Her steps were fluid and practiced, years of training evident in every movement. The two glided across the floor in perfect harmony, their movements precise yet effortless. The man behind the mask said little, his presence courteous but reserved. As the music changed, signaling a switch in partners, Seraphim curtsied and moved on. Her second partner was shorter, but moved with surprising grace. Their mask, crafted to resemble the petals of a lily, hinted at a playful spirit. He attempted a few jokes as they danced, earning a polite laugh from Seraphim, though her thoughts remained elsewhere. She was aware of the murmurs in the crowd. The glances cast her way as whispers followed her like shadows. The House of Hightower had always commanded attention, but tonight it felt heavier, her every step scrutinized. By the time Seraphim reached her fourth partner, she had settled into the rhythm of the evening. However, her mind, however, was far from at ease. Somewhere in this sea of masks and elegant figures, her betrothed awaited. One of these men would step forward at the appointed time and claim her hand, revealing themselves not just to her, but to the entire sanctuary. The knowledge filled her with both anticipation and apprehension. Who would it be? Could it be one of the partners she'd already danced with, their smiles polite and their hands steady on her waist? Or someone she hadn't yet met tonight, their face hidden behind an ornate mask, waiting for the perfect moment to step into her path? The music shifted again, a sweeping melody that beckoned Seraphim to her next partner. This one was taller than the others, his mask a striking black and gold design that accentuated his sharp, chiseled features. His grip was firm, but not overbearing, as he led her across the floor. There was a confidence in his movements, a precision that matched her own. Their gazes met briefly, and though his eyes were obscured by the mask's shadow, there was something familiar in his presence, something that tugged at the edges of her memory. The waltz ended too soon, the music fading as dancers paused to exchange bows and courtesies. Seraphim watched as the black and gold masked man disappeared into the crowd, leaving her with a curious ache in her chest. She didn't have time to dwell on it, as the evening ceremony was about to begin. The High Elder Sylvana's voice rang out, calling the guests to attention, her words heralding the moment they had all been waiting for. Seraphim's heart quickened as she stepped to the edge of the crowd, her lavender gown shimmering like starlight. The festival, for all its beauty and charm, was about to reveal its true purpose, and Seraphim stood at the center of it all, caught between the weight of tradition and the unknown path that lay ahead. Sylvana's voice, clear and strong, echoed through the halls. We now move to the second part of the Spring Wisp Festival, where those of age and eligible for betrothal will present their chosen partners. First, let us call forward the House of Hightower and the House of Valerius to present your betrothals. Seraphim felt her heart begin to race as she caught those words. The House of Valerius. Her mind flashed back to the masquerade ball, the dance, the masked man who had been with her. Could it be him? Valerian Valerius? The thought took hold of her, her breath catching in her throat. Before she could compose herself, the figures of the two houses were stepping forward. Seraphim's gaze was drawn to the pair, and her heart skipped a beat when the tall figure stepped forward, his presence commanding even in the sea of faces. His eyes met hers, and a sense of recognition washed over her. This was the man she had danced with, Alaron. Her mind spun. She hadn't known, she hadn't been told. She had never seen him without the mask. But now, here he was, standing before her. Alaron Valerius. They both removed their masks at the same time, and Seraphim's breath caught in her throat. The moment their masks fell away, she whispered almost as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Alaron? Alaron smiled, his expression soft but warm. Hello, Seraphim. Her heart thudded in her chest, her thoughts scrambling for coherence. She had danced with him, she had felt a connection with him, and now she understood why. He was her betrothed, the man she had been bound to all along. The crowd murmured in approval, a wave of voices like the rustling of leaves in the breeze. As Sylvana's voice carried over the gathering. The betrothal of Seraphim of the House of Hightower and Alaron of the House of Valerius is now revealed. Let it be known. Her words were clear and resonant, each syllable like the toll of a bell, marking an inevitable moment in time. Seraphim felt her knees tremble beneath her. Her breath caught as her heart thundered in her chest. The announcement had been expected. She had known this day would come, yet knowing and experiencing were two very different things. She stole a glance at Alaron, whose mask had just been removed. His striking features were both unfamiliar and deeply intriguing. His expression calm, his eyes blue as the morning sky meeting hers with a confidence that made her stomach twist. This was the man she was promised to, the one the elders had deemed her match. The mark on her on her wrist seemed to burn faintly beneath her sleeve, a subtle reminder of the fate she now faced. Her mind reeled, piecing together fragments of moments that had led her here. The enigmatic visions, the fleeting connection she felt during the dance, the sense of destiny pulling her towards this point. Yet for all that, the truth had been kept hidden, shrouded in secrecy until now. The murmurs of congratulations and well wishes began to swell, but before Seraphim could fully process her emotions, a sharp voice cut through the noise like a blade. "I challenge the betrothal!" The words hung in the air, silencing the room in an instant. The crowd collectively froze, turning toward the source of the declaration. Seraphim's breath hitched, and her gaze darted around, her heart pounding as she searched for the speaker. Then she saw him. A figure stepped forward from the crowd, his movements deliberate, his posture exuding confidence. His mask, a rich blend of silver and green, caught the flickering light of lanterns. He stood tall, nearly Alaron's height, but with a leaner frame, his features partially obscured. The mask gave him an air of mystery, but there was something achingly familiar in the way he carried himself. When their eyes met, her stomach dropped. Her cheeks warmed and her pulse quickened. The audacity of it. The sheer boldness to step forward and declare such a challenge left her stunned. To have one person claim her hand tonight had been overwhelming enough, but to know someone else held her in such regard that they would defy the ceremony and its traditions for her was utterly earth-shattering. The crowd erupted into murmurs and whispers, a tide of speculation rippling through the pavilion. Sylvana's voice rang out above the noise, her tone sharp and commanding. "Silence, everyone!" she ordered, the authority in her words quelling the unrest. The masked figure, now standing alone in the center of the room, drew all eyes. Sylvana's gaze sharpened as she addressed him directly. "You challenge for Seraphim's hand?" The young man nodded with an emphatic dip of his head, his posture unwavering, his every movement radiating newfound confidence. The intensity in his stance held the crowd captive, even as Seraphim felt her knees weakened. "Very well," Sylvana said, her voice taking a formal cadence. Her gaze flicked toward Seraphim briefly, a small knowing smile tugging at the corner of her lips before she returned her attention to the masked figure. "You must reveal yourself. Take off your mask, please." For a moment the challenger hesitated, the weight of the moment palpable in the stillness. Then, with a decisive motion, he lifted the mask away, revealing the face beneath. Seraphim's breath left her in a rush. Her heart stopped for a brief beat, then resumed its frantic pace as recognition washed over her. "Leander?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the collective gasp of the crowd. It was him. The same Leander who had been her sparring partner, her confidant, her friend. The same Leander who had stood beside her in moments of triumph and failure alike. She couldn't fathom it. How could he be standing here, challenging her betrothal? Her mind raced, 1,000 memories flashing through her thoughts. The playful banter during training sessions, the quiet moments of engagement when she doubted herself, the way he always seemed to understand her without needing words. He had been a constant presence in her life, a steady anchor in the sea of uncertainty. And now here he was, throwing everything into chaos. A challenge. A challenge has been made, Sylvana declared, her tone firm and unyielding, cutting through the tension like a knife. The challenge for Seraphim's Hand will take place at the Sunbloom Festival 6 months from now. There it will be settled, and the betrothals will be blessed by the oracle. The room seemed to pulse with the energy of the crowd's murmurs, the whispers growing louder as speculation and excitement rippled through the assembly. All eyes were on Seraphim now, their gazes heavy with expectation. She stood frozen, her mind spinning as the reality of the situation settled over her like a heavy cloak. Leander, the young man who had always been at her side, was now challenging Aileron, the man she had just been promised to. The tension in the room was suffocating, the weight of so many emotions pressing down on her at once. What was she supposed to do? How could she reconcile the feelings warring within her? Aileron, the stranger who represented a future she had yet to envision. Leander, the familiar face who now stood as a rival to that future. The decision was no longer hers. Not yet. The room seemed to fade around her, the murmurs of the crowd a distant hum as her thoughts consumed her. The path ahead had just become far more complicated than she could have ever imagined.